Fatherhood isn't easy, but in Autismland, it's a journey like no other. Join Mark de Grasse as we explore the highs, lows, and everything in between of raising children on the autism spectrum. With real stories, practical advice, and a touch of humor, we're here to navigate this unique journey together. For dads navigating life on the autism spectrum, you're not alone.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Dads at Autismland podcast. I'm your host, Mark de Grasse, and this is the first part of the Guide to Autismland series, where basically we assembled all of the episodes, so 27 episodes we've done so far, into, or organized them into a way where we could actually pull the stories out and look at all the different cases for, different aspects of the autism journey. If you're a new dad, hopefully this is going to provide you a guide to some of the different aspects that you're probably going to face in your experience raising an autistic child or children. And it's, it's supposed to give you a kind of, a starting point. And if you want to go deeper into any of these stories that I'm going to talk about in any of these episodes, go and check out the individual ones. The dads that have come on have been extremely, honest and vulnerable about their, situation, what they've gone through, the emotional journey, that they've had to experience during the raising of their children, and also just give you some tips on how you might want to handle the same situations themselves. Today we're actually going to talk about the diagnosis and kind of the first steps of the journey, just to give you an idea of how it starts. Now, for me personally, I did a full episode on this. I think it was episode 2. If you want to check that out, you could hear my full story. Even episode 1, I go a lot into the kind of beginning process of being an autism dad, but I'm going to touch on the other stories that I've heard and kind of assemble it into a summary that will give you an idea of how to get started. If you are worried, or if you just want to identify with other dads that have gone through the process, this is the episode for you. So again, if you haven't heard the podcast before, my name is Mark. My son is Damien. He has profound autism, or level 3, whatever you want to call it. He's nonverbal. He's 13, and he attends therapy full time. We actually tried to go the normal school route originally. Had to pull him out. And again, I go into lots of detail on that. I'm not going to overdo it in this episode. But we realized our journey started for me around like 18 months. I think my wife and her mom, it started a little bit sooner because she had her suspicions about his behavior that were kind of early signs of autism. Our journey took a while. It took us about 2 years or so to get the diagnosis, and then it's an ongoing journey. And there's different stages, and you'll hear the dads. It's different stages of acceptance, and then learning, and then excelling, and really having a good life with your autistic child, ideally. But just to touch on some of the other stories that we've heard. Again, go and check that out. I think, it's episode 1 and 2 if you want to hear my full story. But my goal with this is just to give you an idea of just how it goes for a variety of children. You hear this with autism a lot, that if you've met one autistic child, you've met one autistic child. They're all very different. And even though they share similarities in some cases, just like personalities of people, like you'll have similar personalities, it's all very different. So it's important for you, the listener, to realize that this, don't think, oh, I didn't see that. That's, my situation's, completely unique. You're still going to find some similarities. So just look for them. So for example, we have Corey Michael's journey with his daughter, Evie. When they start realizing like, hey, there might be a difference with our child. It was poor eye contact as a baby, not looking at the parents' eyes during the interactions, speech being delayed, even though other milestones were on track, delayed gross motor skills, couldn't jump until she was 4 and worked at 13 to 14 months. Sometimes it's just normal. Some kids just develop differently. So any of these individual things, I would say, don't go full bore into figuring it out, but to start to be aware of it. They also saw mental inventorying, which is, like immediately knowing which of the 20 stuffed animals were missing from her collection, obsessed with transferring the stuffed animals around the house, advanced shape recognition at 3, being able to see and actually name different kind of complicated shapes like polygons, pentagons and decagons, all that kind of stuff. And then sensory meltdowns. And you will hear meltdowns are a similarity a lot of times, but all children do it. It's really the duration, the severity, the frequency, all those factors come in. But for Evie, it was 10-minute meltdowns from just transferring activities. And so it's even the triggers that you'll find sometimes could lead you to, starting the diagnostic process. For Michael, or I'm sorry, Corey, they did the evaluation at 2 years and 11 months through their insurance provider, and it was a 2-hour evaluation. And then they got the diagnosis. For me personally, our journey was like, I think, a year and a half, 2 years. We had to go through a lot of different tests to basically rule out everything but autism, and then we got the autism diagnosis. So even the diagnostic process is not uniform. It's going to be different for every single case. So just keep that in mind. That even though I'm talking about a bunch of different ways, yours might be completely different. For example, we have Dennis Procopio with his son Bennett, and his son has dwarfism as well, and they knew it from even during the pregnancy. And so they were kind of expecting that, but they didn't actually get the autism diagnosis until 3 or 4 years old. And that's when the behavioral milestones were missed pretty obviously. And that's, again, the milestones really help you in the process of saying, okay, is this my child's different, or is this my child has, a more serious situation like autism? Behavioral challenges. He called it the broken TV club member, with his son throwing remotes at TVs, and then having to get replacements. And you'll find that a lot. My son uses a laptop. We've probably gone through 8 laptops, phones, iPads, a lot of devices and tablets. You'll hear a lot. You'll go through a lot of those. And not necessarily because they're violent with them. They can be, but they'll hide them and lose them, just like any kids. But with if you do have a autistic child and it's part of their stemming, it can be really serious. And, and this is not a device talk. My son, Declan, he said you can't have a device until you're, 16. This is, it's a necessity. And honestly, even if somebody's going to guilt you about something like, oh, kids shouldn't have whatever, which I agree with in most cases, for neurotypical kids. For autistic kids, it might be their only way to get out of the house. For us, it's the only reason why we're able to travel so well, is because we don't give him devices unless we travel. And so his travel is like, he looks forward to travel, even though before it could be really rough on plane flights. We live in Texas, and most of our family's in California. So you can imagine we have to travel a lot, and that was the only way it was going to happen. So again, different time frames, different early medical issues, and then experiences that kind of led to the diagnosis. For Steve Levine, his son Nathan, who is actually older now. I think he's in his 30s. Just got a job recently. I saw Steve post, which is phenomenal. And that's another thing I'd like people to realize when you're going through all these processes, you mentally start ruling things out for the future. For me, with my son Damien, until I heard Steve's story about his son, actually getting a job and excelling at the job and winning awards, I never thought that somebody of that level of autism could actually do that. For my son specifically, I'm like, man, if somebody can figure that out, that'd be incredible. But it was never on my radar. And so again, listen to these stories and just kind of consider them, because there's a lot of experiences out there that you probably never even heard of or considered could be part of your experience. So for Steve and his son Nathan, serious seizure disorder starting at 6 months old, 2.5 to 3 years old. He was struggling to get seizures under control, visiting doctors in Austin, Houston, Pittsburgh. That's another recurring theme you'll find with the autism journey is the movement. I've had dads talk about leaving their jobs and moving states just to get closer to the help that they needed. And the diagnostic journey. I mean, we got, we live in Texas now, but we actually went back to California to help get through the diagnostic process, and then actually moved back to Texas again. And so you'll hear this shifting around. So if it's just the lesson is just to be flexible because even though I'm never gonna live in Texas, you don't know. You're going to go wherever it makes the most sense to help your family, and that's commendable. So keep that in mind. But going on with Steve's story, by age 3, he hadn't learned to talk. Son Nathan hadn't learned to talk, social skill issues, but you'll also find some things are normal. So for Nathan, the gross motor skills were actually on track. So, again, everybody's very different, and it's hard to kind of nail down any one specific thing. School experiences for Nathan, and this is the 90s, so it's a little bit different now, but the schools didn't know what to do. If you have an undiagnosed autistic person in a classroom, you'll notice they wander, hard to concentrate. And again, it's always unique, but that was a real difficult issue for them. And then, eventually you get to, current life management, which we'll get into in other episodes. Scott Bisbee, his son, Alex, was very gifted, scored 148 on an IQ test, but has pathological demand avoidance, which is another aspect. He was diagnosed during COVID, and that's when they were homeschooling, and actually the behavioral patterns became a lot more obvious. So even though you might think that maybe school will help, preschool, kindergarten, you get them in there, and then all of a sudden, oh hey, they just need more structure. But a lot of times it will kind of make the situation very clear. So for us, we actually had Damien enrolled in a public school here in Texas for a couple years, and it got increasingly difficult. And then we had a situation that required us to remove him. And that's just, it's part of the diagnosis process sometimes, or even just realizing how severe they can be is going through the school experience. Diagnosis challenges for Scott and his son Alex, a year and a half of testing in Canada, constantly going back and forth. They did the same thing I went through, which was eliminating Fragile X, eliminating deafness and other conditions before they got the diagnosis. Healthcare system thought autism is just kids that don't talk, which if you know some autistic kids, that's not the whole story a lot of the times. And for him, and you'll also hear this, is the successful families, the families that are together, which is a very difficult thing. If you look at statistically, I think it's like 89% of special needs families end up divorced. And it's because it's very difficult. But the ones that make it, you'll always see it's a partnership between the parents, and and you help each other out. We'll have a full episode about that.
Hey, Dad. Yeah, you. The one who stayed up researching sensory toys at 2 a.m. The one learning about IEPs while watching game highlights. We see you. The Pathfinder Collective is where dads like us connect beyond the podcast. No judgment, just real talk about raising kids on the spectrum. $50 gets you lifetime access to our Facebook group, bi-monthly workshops with experts who actually get it, and yeah, a free shirt to replace that one with all the inexplicable stains. Because sometimes you need more than advice. You need another dad who nods and says, same here, man. Go to dadsinautismland.com/pathfinder.
Moving on to Jacob Cook's journey with his son, Bo. The early signs, playing with toy tags instead of the actual toys, flapping the tags back and forth. You'll kind of see this, obsessive behavior. For my son, he watches one scene from Monsters Inc. It's when Mr. Waternoose is dressing down the prospective scares, and there's a scream and there's certain noises, and he'll just repeat that on a loop, and he'll try to find it in different languages on YouTube. Even though he can't read, he can still find things and say Japanese, and he'll listen to it in Japanese and then Spanish and then Turkish, and I don't know how he does it. But yeah, it's obsessive, repetitive behavior. A lot of times is an indicator. Hand flapping, stemming. He had 3 years or 3 words, dad, mom, and a third word that Jacob couldn't remember before 18 months, but then he lost all his words. And for my son Damien, it was the same way. Before he went through this lethargic kind of slowdown, actually did say mom and dad, and I think one other word too, and then he lost it all and hasn't got back since. And then his wife worked with older adults with autism, and again recognized a lot of those signs. And for Jacob, he actually talked about the initial denial, which if when you're going through this process, there is a lot of that, and it's kind of mixed, the denial and the hope. Kind of like, hey, this is difficult, we can figure it out, we got this, and then it's just it's a journey. So for him, he was in denial. He doesn't have autism, or you're saying his son doesn't have autism. His wife was challenging that, and then that's how they finally went to get tested. Was this debate between like, does he or doesn't he? Let's go get tested, and then it was confirmed. Neil Tricarico and his son Anthony. His son Anthony, who unfortunately has passed. He did have unusual early signs, but he was very high functioning. Almost it's gifted in terms of the things he was able to do. But he had some unusual early signs, ripping his own hair out at school, which the teachers observed. Uncomfortable with the emotional tone not being perfect during, say, bedtime stories when he was a child, clothing sensitivities, sensitivities to material issues. You'll find that the hypersensitivity is a common sign. Not for my son. My son's hyposensitive, which means he is actually kind of numb to input, and so he craves more of it. Again, different kids. Only wearing Adidas track suits, again, obsession with a certain situation or structure. Birthday equals water park tradition, this black and white thinking, and are not able to go outside of it, and will melt down sometimes if they can't get exactly what they need. And then he had little figurines that he rubbed repetitively. So again, just these little early signs, and again, it's each one of them individually might not be anything. And I always say this, my wife and I say this about our son Declan, where he shows some signs of autism. He's not, but it's just something similar to some of the traits that you'll see with autistic kids. But altogether, that's when you start to know, like, okay, we got to go get tested. High functioning autism, the diagnosis, and it was formerly Asperger's, and you'll hear about Asperger's versus autism, and whether the Asperger's diagnosis should not have been incorporated into the autism diagnosis. I'm not going to get into that, but just know that you'll probably run into it when you start delving deeply into what autism is. Eventually graduate out of the autism center he was in 7th grade. And they never used IEPs because he didn't want to be treated differently, and he excelled in school. So again, autism different for everybody. The high level versus the low level autism, there's still similar signs, and so just know that if they start to add up, if anything I've said, you're like that one, yeah, you might want to go ahead and go the formal route of getting the diagnosis. Matt Anderton with his son Beckett. This is in episode 22. Early diagnosis. First year was normal. Walking, talking early. Had about 20 plus years. Could say the phrase "I love you," which is incredible. At exactly 1 year old, though, he said it switched. It went from totally normal to all the autism signs. And I'm not going to, go into anything about why that might have happened at a specific point, but we'll probably talk about it eventually. Early red flag for him was sensitivities to gluten and dairy. There are a lot of stomach issues you'll find with autistic kids, and they do say, some people theorize that the gut health and the gut microbiome is actually very linked to autism. Me personally, I had IBS for like 39 years and didn't realize it, and it totally affected my mood. I basically realized I was severely depressed for that entire time. And there's a lot. There's still going through the science of it, but you have to realize that the biggest nerve cluster outside of your brain is actually in your gut. And so the microbiome and everything that has to do with gut health is very related to how you think and behave, and your depression level for me personally. So yeah, it's look into the microbiome and the diet. That's why some people say, and if you're a dad, I'm sorry, because this probably happens to you a lot. Like, hey, I found that the solution to autism is some kind of diet plan or supplement. You'll get that a lot. Just say thank you to people. They're trying to help. Okay, so for Matt Anderton and Beckett, got the diagnosis at 13 months, and they were prescribed to eczema medication. And then the decision point was put them on prescription for life or figure this out. That's another thing you'll get into a lot. The drug debate. Should you address the behaviors with drugs or not? It's a big decision, and you're gonna have to do a lot of research on that. Again, I'm not gonna touch on it. Damien, we've tried to avoid drugs as much as possible, and it could be much more difficult. Sleeping, anger issues, anxiety, like there's a lot. So I'm not gonna say either way. Our personal way is we didn't, but it is a decision you're probably gonna have to face. The treatment approach for Beckett started in home therapies, through friends, OT, speech therapy. The father, Matt, he actually left a 70, 80 hour a week job, so he could be involved full time. They got really into nutrition before they started ABA speech therapy. And even, and you'll notice other things like for Beckett, he has a chlorine sensitivity, which they didn't find out until they basically went through the experience of probably having some kind of breakout. Let's see, Patrick Hurley's journey with his son. They had behaviors escalating during puberty. Again, sometimes the diagnosis doesn't come till later, or the decision to take action. Like maybe there's an issue, but it's manageable. And again, it's different for everybody. Physical aggression towards the father, and that happens. It's just personality differences. And sometimes there is violence, and then it could be dangerous. Again, it's they for Patrick, they had to learn not to react. So because a lot of times they're looking for the reaction. Like my son Damien, his reactions are totally different than say other kids. And sometimes he's a tease. They're looking for that reaction. And how it was described to us one time was that they'll go to the like point where they got a reaction and they'll start there. And so instead of building up to like a big reaction before like something happens, they'll skip that and go right to the big reaction to get what they want. And again, personality differences, but we've seen that with our son. Like, oh, he'll skip the build up and he'll just go straight to the effective way to get what he wants. Let's see, school can provide needed support level, daily pickup calls. I've heard that a lot too. When schools can't handle, they will, and you have to look into the laws around that. ADA compliance is nationwide, so you just have to ask AI. Just say, hey, in my state, what's the requirement for notifying parents during issues? There's a lot of research you're going to be doing. Move to therapeutic school where no phone call means a good day. That's common too. And you might go through multiple schools. You might go through multiple therapists. You might try a million different therapies to find out what works. It's part of the journey. There's no set system. David Lee, with his son Eddie, they had to seek counseling and psychiatric help because their situation wasn't sustainable. And so a lot of times, you'll deal with, hey, this is just parenting, and you'll try to deal with it for so long before you realize, like, no, you have to get help for the sake of the family, for the sake of your son, maybe the sake of your other children. It's their experience too. And I've talked to lots of dads where, their other kids are affected a lot. For my son, Declan, we've been tried to be very cognizant of that. And so we try to treat him with equal attention and equal dedication that we have for my autistic son, simply because we don't want him to resent my other son. Because when we're gone, he's the only one left. So we want to make sure that they get along as much as possible. For David, they were waitlisted for 3 years for ABA therapy. And then they had $1,500 a week in out-of-pocket costs, and that's why I think they moved from West Virginia to Missouri for better services. So again, this travel, this flexibility is again a common thread that you're going to see. Tim Hook's journey in episode 18. They got into ABA therapy at age 2. A lot of times you'll hear therapists and professionals. Well, we advocated to talk to professionals as soon as possible if you think there's an issue, and then start as soon as possible. And that could be really hard. It could be really expensive. But in terms of development, it helped. The sooner they get it into the therapies, the better. And the sooner you can find out which one is effective, the better as well. So don't delay too much. So in terms of Tim Huck, they got into ABA therapy at age 2. Which was huge for them. Some finished ABA therapy, graduated to regular school, which is something that can happen. Some kids can develop a ton through therapy. My son's been in ABA therapy for, let's see, 6 or 7 years, full time, 9 to 2:45 every day. And he has definitely made increases, but it hasn't been some huge, like, oh, now he could do this. It's a annual type thing of advancing. So, it could go either way. Just don't want to get your hopes up too much that, oh, it's fixable, because sometimes the situation or the behavior is going to take much longer. School closure disrupted the routine. Routine is huge. It's enormous for a lot of autistic kids. My son too, like anytime we move, vacations, he's much better than he used to be. He can adjust for a certain amount of time. Like 5 days we found is like he could travel for 5 days, then it's going to get rough. But most of the time they like the structure. My son knows exactly what day it is. He knows if it's Saturday, he doesn't have to go to school. And so he's going to be waking up and laughing. He loves school, but he also loves not school. So, then he'll be excited. He knows exactly what's going on, which is super interesting to see. And then for Tim, they had difficulty getting their IEP in Montana, despite the autism, ADHD, and anxiety diagnosis. It depends on your area. Every area is different. Sometimes the policy change, but you will find that some areas or some states are much better than others. So, you gotta find the right path. Then finally, Devon House, he actually has twins with autism, Isaiah and Titus. They're currently 8 years old, severely autistic, minimal verbal communication. And again, you see this, we talked about the disruption. He was actually hospitalized for 3 months, and this throws off the whole routine. It's kind of scary because you're just like, oh my gosh, I hope nothing big happens. But if you do face, some life-changing situation for a bit, it's going to be a battle to get them back on track, or reinvention of the structure, which happens too. Upon return, he found his twins were fighting constantly. At the time when we did the episode, again, this is episode 8, he was talking about how they couldn't be in the same room or car because they would fight so severely that they basically started having to take 2 cars everywhere because they had to keep the boys separated. Hopefully that's improved. I got to check it on him. And then they actually explored stem cell therapy. So you probably heard stem cell therapy, maybe researched it if you're going through the autism journey. And we've researched it as well. We haven't taken that step, honestly, because we've been in a good spot, and we don't want to disrupt anything. So again, structure matters. And for us, like, our discussion is always like, if he, what level of severity would it have to be? If he, say he got super violent, my son's going through puberty right now. He's acting a little differently. And that's when we would explore some of the other solutions. If what we're doing currently isn't sufficing, we'd have to go down that route. So they did explore it, and he did have some, or at least one of his sons did have some really good results and saw some gains during after the stem cell that they did. So go and check out that episode. He talks about the whole thing. And that's, just sampling. Again, every journey is different. The diagnosis, again, can be very harsh, but hopefully this episode can be kind of like an intro into what to expect, or what you can expect based on the different levels of autism. But again, listen to the other episodes. If any of this resonated, I'll include a list of these episodes in the description. Go and check those out and find out more about this journey. Because if one of them resonated with you, like, oh my gosh, that's so similar to what happened to us, check out the episode. We get pretty deep in all of them. And again, if you want to hear anything more about my diagnosis story with my son Damien, the first and second episodes go into that pretty detailed. And that's it for today. So again, this series is just supposed to give you an intro. I'm going to be again mentioning a lot of these stories that we've collected over these 27 episodes, and hopefully it'll resonate something with what you're going through, or at least make you feel less alone, because we're all going through some difficult times. And when you hear that you're not alone, I think it made me personally feel much better. So I hope it does for you too. Tune back in and listen to more of the Guide to Autismland series.